Nier Replicant is one of those games that comes around every once in a while. Like Nier Automata, it's a very unique experience that you can't get anywhere else. Now, that's not saying it's like Automata either though. The two are completely different games even if they are based within the same world. Going into this game though, I went in knowing there would be a huge difference. Like I said in my last video on Nier, the director literally joked about selling this game out of the back of a van and playing frickin' frisbee with leftover discs that were overproduced, because he's just that unconfident that his work will find an audience. And to that I say, Yoko, you're loco bro, this game's awesome. But Replicant does definitely have its problems that come with remastering a 10-year-old game. Like this Kotaku article complaining that there's an Easter egg for trying to look up Kaine's skirt one too many times. Dude, seriously, can you just review the game and stop making a problem out of nothing?
Fuck off and die, you pervy little shit!
Anyway, obviously it's not going to have the polish and finesse that Automata does in its combat and gameplay mechanics. But one thing that's withstood the test of time is the game's story. It definitely does start out a bit slow, having you do some fetch quests and run from place to place aimlessly doing tasks, but I'll be honest, I still enjoyed this part of the game personally. I think it was necessary to get familiar with all of the game's different characters, and to truly grasp the difference in circumstances between the first part of the game and the second part. If I had to compare Nier Replicant, and I only had one game to compare it to, I would probably choose Ocarina of Time. There's even a freaking Zelda reference in this game, like come on guys, you can definitely tell Zelda was a huge influence on Yoko Taro. Both Ocarina of Time's and Nier Replicant's pacing starts off slow. In Ocarina of Time, you're a young boy in a forest who goes on an adventure and everything is jolly and happy. People are dancing in the streets, friggin' ring ding rickety ding. Anyway, it's just a jolly good time when you're a kid, and it's necessary to send you to all these different places within Ocarina of Time's world so you get familiarized with the environments enough so that when they pull a time skip on you later in the game, you're surprised by how much the world has changed for the worse since you were last in the areas you visited as a kid. I mean, Hyrule is a prime example. The dancing citizenry that you were accustomed to running past as a kid has turned into a zombie-infested wasteland post-time skip. And there's no more happy-go-lucky music, the tone of the game had completely changed. This only works when the developers give a great attention to detail to the environments within the game. One big and very similar example of this in Nier Replicant is the village that serves as your home base. Running through the village as a kid, you see children running around, a grandma scolding the kids that if they run too much, you better not come cry to me when you trip and fall. The whole thing feels very lighthearted and fun. But post-time skip, you come back to that same area with the fountain, but the kids aren't running there anymore. You go to talk to the grandma, and she says the exact same voice line, except this time, it has an entirely different meaning, and the protagonist reacts accordingly. And that's just one small example of the many things that Nier Replicant does to make you feel that the situation within the world has become dire. I'm a very big fan of when games do this sort of thing because it makes the game feel like there are tangible consequences to your actions. The past 5 years have not been kind to the world of Nier Replicant, and you know that if you fail, things are bound to get worse. Now if that weren't creative enough, Replicant pulls the same sort of thing that Automata does with different routes even after finishing your traditional playthrough of the game. So once you finish Route A, you can still play through the game once more through Route B, revealing more about your companions, Kaine and Emil, as you don't learn too much about them on your first playthrough. I gotta say, 10 years ago, this must have been a pretty big deal, because the only reason I knew the devs were gonna have different routes playing this game is because I played through Automata. Another thing that I love that Replicant does though, is how it gets you pumped up for battles. Not many games are able to do this well, but for an RPG, when a game is able to do this, that's when you know it has a good story, because I actually care about the circumstances of why I'm even having this fight. The only other game I can think of that made me feel a similar way was Final Fantasy Crisis Core. Whew, for a PSP game, all I could think of, ooh, let me kick this dude's ass. Let's get him, Zach, here we go. And for Replicant to make me feel that same way, I gotta say, job well done. There are two pretty big problems I had with the game overall though. One major criticism I would lob at Nier Replicant is at the side quests. I got almost 100% of them completed, but some of those quests would just rub me the wrong way. Especially that quest where you gotta cross-pollinate the flowers, and then there's only a chance that you might get the right seeds, that you need to cross-pollinate with another type of plant that will finally give you the seeds you need to complete the quest. Like, come on, if that didn't sound complicated enough. Then, on top of all that, you have to wait 2 real days for your plants to actually grow. So, max, if you get lucky, the quest would take you 4 days to complete the whole process of getting the seeds that you need, and even then, it's RNG based. Now, this doesn't apply to every quest. Some of them I did find genuinely enjoyable as they expanded on the game's world and characters, but I would advise anyone trying out Replicant to do the ones that feel relatively easy to complete, and avoid the ones that seem RNG heavy like the plague, as most of the time the rewards for completion are nowhere near worth it, and will only cause frustration within an otherwise flawless experience. Another criticism is that Replicant can sometimes be depressing for the sake of being depressing. For instance, at one point there was a wedding that's going on and everybody's all happy-go-lucky, and I'm just sitting here going, nope, this is too good to be true, something's gonna happen, and... When I can predict something bad is going to happen in a video game, I think that's a bad sign. I should be surprised at the fact that something terrible happens or some sort of twist occurs, not sitting there going, yup, saw that coming a mile away. But overall, pretty solid game. Not as good as Nier Automata, so Yoko Taro, get to selling them discs out of the van, okay?